Hello friends, my name is Dr. Swapnil Dayaram Wag. I am Assistant Professor in Botany at SNJB's Arts, Commerce and Science College, Chandwad. Today we will discussing transpiration. First of all, what is meant by transpiration? Transpiration is a major metabolic process in the plants. In a transpiration, water is lost in the form of water vapor through the stoma. Actually, plant required only 1 to 2% of the water, and remaining water, that is 98% of the water, is transpired by the plants. Plants actually require transpiration for the ascent of sap as well as absorption of the water. For example, Helianthus anus, in Marathi it is known as sunflower, loses about 56 kg of the water in its life cycle of 4 to 5 months. Then, types of the transpiration. There are 3 types of the transpiration. First one is the cuticular transpiration, second one is the lenticular transpiration, and third one, that is the stomatal transpiration. What is meant by cuticular transpiration? When water is transpired through the cuticle is known as cuticular transpiration. Cuticle is the waxy substance, or it is made up of cutin, and it is the outermost covering present outside the epidermis. When water lost through the cuticle, it is known as cuticular transpiration. Actually, cuticle is hydrophobic in nature, therefore only 5% of the water lost through the cuticle, and it is negligible. Then second type, that is lenticular transpiration. First of all, what is meant by lenticels? Lenticels are the small pore that present on the bark of the stem, and this lenticel transpire some amount of the water. It is actually negligible. Only 1.1% to 0.2% of water lost through the lenticels. In Marathi, this bark is also known as sal. Then another type, that is the stomatal transpiration. First of all, what is the stomata? Stomata are the small pore that present on the epidermis, and most amount of the water is transpired through the stomata. More number of the stomata that present on the upper epidermis of the leaf than the lower epidermis. About 80 to 95% of the water transpired through the stomata, and this is the major rate of transpiration which is required for the ascent of sap as well as absorption of the water. Then structure of the stomata. Stomata are the minute pore or opening that present on the epidermis, and it is made up of 2 guard cells. These 2 guard cells are actually kidney shape or the dumbbell shape, and these guard cells having cytosol, it is also known as cytoplasm, vacuole, nucleus, as well as another chloroplast. Then these 2 guard cells surrounded by the subsidiary cells, and these subsidiary cells are the specialized epidermal cells which are surrounded by the epidermal cells. Togetherly, this structure is known as stomatal complex. This is the typical structure of the stomata. Then there are 2 major types of the stomata. One is the dicot stomata and another one is the monocot stomata. Now, what is meant by dicot stomata? Dicot stomata is actually made up of couple of guard cells, and these 2 guard cells are the kidney shape or the bean shape, and these 2 guard cells surrounded by the subsidiary cells, and subsidiary cells are surrounded by the epidermal cells. Then monocot stomata. Monocot stomata is actually made up of 2 guard cells which are dumbbell shape, and these 2 guard cells having swollen ends and thin narrow middle portion. Then stomatal pore is a gap between 2 guard cells, and which is required for the exchange of gases as well as the transpiration. And actually this pore is responsible for exchange of CO2 as well as O2, and this stoma is somewhat elliptic or elongated than the dicot stoma. Then another process is present in the plant. It is known as guttation. Now, what is meant by guttation? Guttation is the loss of water in liquid form from the uninjured tips or the margins of the leaf is known as guttation. There are total 333 genera of the plants belonging to 115 families. For example, most of the grasses, they gutted water from the uninjured part of the tips, and mostly when water exceed transpiration, then this guttation occur in the plants. and this guttation occur through the hydathoids. Hydathoids are the specialized structure that present on the margin of leaf. Then there is one hypothesis which is given by Stewart, and that hypothesis is known as Stewart hypothesis, which explain the stomatal opening as well as closing. Actually, stomatal opening and closing depend on the interconversion of starch and the glucose. First of all, starch in a day condition converted into the glucose molecule in presence of enzyme phosphorylase, phosphoglucosamidase and the phosphatase, and number of glucose molecules increased inside the stoma. It increased the osmotic pressure, and therefore water move from subsidiary cell to the guard cell. Guard cell become turgid and stomata is open. And during the night time, glucose is again converted into the starch in presence of enzyme hexokinase and phosphorylase, and during the night time water move from guard cell to the subsidiary cell. Guard cell become flaccid and stomata get closed. This is Stewart hypothesis, and this hypothesis is actually not accepted worldwide because glucose is not the compatible solute, because glucose is utilized during the energy as an energy source. Therefore, it is not a osmolyte. Now, what are the factors that affecting the rate of transpiration? First of all, external factors or the environmental factors that affect the rate of transpiration. First one, that is the temperature. Temperature is the major factor that affect the rate of transpiration. When temperature in the environment is more, transpiration rate is also more. Then second one, that is the light intensity. The quality of light is also essential. When light intensity more in the environment, there is a more transpiration occur. Then atmospheric humidity. When environmental humidity exceed 60%, the rate of transpiration get decline. Then atmospheric pressure. When atmospheric pressure on the leaves are more, then rate of transpiration is reduced due to the stomatal closure. Then water content in the soil. When water content in the soil is more, there is a more rate of transpiration because water absorbed by the plant, and there is a more ascent of sap, and due to that there is a more transpiration. Then air currents. Air currents are more, or wind is more, then also plant they close their stomata and rate of transpiration get reduced. Then some internal factors. Size of leaves. If size of leaves is more, then transpiration is obviously more. Then coating, cuticle, wax or cutin on the epidermis. When there is a more cuticle or thick cuticle, it is hydrophobic in nature, their transpiration is decline. Then number and size of stomata per unit area. When number of stomata per unit area is more, then also the transpiration is more. Then water content of the mesophyll cell. When water content in the mesophyll cell is more, the rate of transpiration is also more. And rate and shoot ratio. When root and shoot ratio is more, means more numbers of the root, they absorb the large amount of water, and therefore large amount of transpiration takes place. And these are few references to refer. For example, Plant Physiology by Tej and Jigar. Thank you.